Welcome to Coaching Conversations, Dee and Sarah. Lovely to have you with us here today. Let me start, Dee, just by asking you to start. I usually sort of start off with people's stories because I really do think it's the stories about ourselves and our lives that are really interesting about people. So, I've done a little bit of research about you and your journey previously to inviting you on. And I see that you've previously worked in the voluntary sector and you worked sort of in education and healthcare, but never ever before stepped foot in prison before the whole sort of concept of breakthrough as a social enterprise sort of arrived. So can you tell us a little bit more about you, your background, and and breakthrough, how it came to be?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's lovely to be here. I really like this forum. It's got really good energy, really interesting to see the kind of things you've got coming up as well. So my name's Dee. I can tell you a little bit about my kind of background and how I got into founding Breakthrough. So my background was in consulting, so very kind of quite corporate, quite different to the things that I do now. And as you said, kind of a healthcare focus as well. And it was quite random, really, that I got asked to go into prison. I remember that I wanted to do something different. I was doing a program called Year Here. It's like a social MBA. And they said, "Oh, we've got this placement in prison." And I said, no, like, I know nothing about criminal justice. Like, give me a healthcare setting or education or something like that. Like, I really think I can add value there. Prison, I know nothing about. And they were like, no, I think you should really give it a try. And so I said, okay, 6 months in prison, I'll learn loads, and then I can go back and do something impactful and probably in the healthcare space. And so, I started reading about criminal justice and really started getting really, really interested. It's something that I definitely didn't think a lot about at all, probably less than maybe I should have done, as kind of, it's a really critical part of our society. And then I went to work in prison for 6 months, and I was technically called a coach there, but I wasn't a qualified coach. I was kind of a support coach. And we worked with guys who were coming up to release. And that's a really critical period for people who maybe have been in prison for a few years. And this is when you start thinking, okay, what's next? And before that, it's like, how do I get by? What am I going to do here? And then it's kind of this really interesting time for them. And actually, I think a really, really important time for interventions, because it's quite a unique period in people's life, really. So I supported people through a program that we ran in prison, and then once they're released, I then supported them into work. And the reason then why Breakthrough was founded is I met lots of really interesting guys, really funny, very creative, very entrepreneurial, who really wanted to make a change, but they didn't know that they could get a job, didn't know how that worked. And there were lots of kind of construction roles that were available and roles in hospitality, but for guys who wanted to do something a bit different, really interested in technology, they saw it as the future, there was really a lack of opportunity and a lack of training and a lack of, I suppose, anyone they knew kind of having those types of roles. So I thought, okay, I'll find an organization that will help you do that. And then there wasn't one. And that's basically how Breakthrough was founded. And we've kind of been, obviously COVID then hit, and that was quite difficult to try and work in prison. So now we run programs in prison and in the community, where we have lots of different tech companies who partner with us to deliver training. And then on top of that, we do coaching and we do soft skills and mindset, and then partner with employers when guys are released and then move into jobs.
Fantastic. Well, we'll dig into the whole community program and the soft skills training and that a little bit further on in our conversation. So how long has Breakthrough been sort of, operational?
Yeah, so we were founded in 2019. And as I'm sure many of you know, 2020 was a very different year. And probably I wouldn't have set it up if I'd known about COVID. So in COVID times, prison completely shut down. So, in this community, you kind of opened up and closed and opened up and closed. In prison, it didn't. So actually, Breakthrough was on pause for a lot. But actually, because of that restriction, we then set up the community program, and that was never part of the original vision. So, and now it's like really successful, and there's a lot of demand for it. So yeah, 2019 with lots of pivoting and things during COVID.
It's interesting, isn't it, how our original vision, sometimes when we're presented with a challenge, it opens another possibility to us, you know, which is, you know, so important to us as coaches to remember that, you know, sort of, you know, if we're coaching or if our client has a challenge, we can reframe that and look for the potential possibilities within any of those challenges. So yeah, that's really interesting. Dee, thank you. Sarah, what about for you? What's your role within Breakthrough, and also sort of how a little bit about your journey, because you're a coach, right? That's your official role. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Sharon, and thanks for inviting us on. Yeah, just to add on to what Dee's been saying, I've actually only been at Breakthrough for just under 6 months, so relatively fresh. And prior to that, kind of worked in corporate HR and talent development roles. I've always had roles that had coaching as an element of it, and have kind of got a private practice outside of my work at Breakthrough. But predominantly what's led me here is that I used to be a coaching purist, and now have realized that if you mix it with mentoring and other therapeutical coaching approaches, it really does make the difference in spaces where are still quite less known within, especially within the UK society. Not many people know enough detail about what's going on in some of you know, the criminal justice sector, or even some areas of education, which I think should be more well known, especially in the coaching space. And how many of you who are practicing coaches, it really does make a difference to individuals, and also a more scalable point if more coaches get involved. So I'm definitely come to Breakthrough as a coaching advocate, and have been really interested in just seeing how, if you apply coaching skills in this space, the difference it really does make. So yeah, my day-to-day role is Chief Operating Officer, so I look after kind of the program design. I work with coaches, but also volunteers that deliver some of our technical sessions, and work with we call them associates, so people who are in prison or have left prison recently or interacted with the criminal justice system, to support them in their next steps.
Fantastic. Thanks, Sarah. And what really sort of comes through to me loud and clear, both from what you were saying, Dee, and also the same with you, Sarah, is that, you know, you've brought your skills and knowledge and talent from the corporate sector into this area to make a huge difference to the people that you're interacting with, both in your community program and also within the program within prisons. With that in mind, I know that your values there at Breakthrough, and you know, we're all big on values, aren't we? Where coaching is concerned, and finding out what our clients' value drivers are. But at Breakthrough, your driving values are ambition, excellence, fairness, and we play the long game. I'm not quite sure if that's sort of, maybe Dee and Sarah want to, you know, take it in turns in asking, but tell me a little bit more about, you know, why those particular values, and what that means within Breakthrough, and the play the long game. I'm really curious about that one.
I can maybe kick off and then hand over to Sarah. So yeah, I think we play the long game is a really important one, and I think probably the one that maybe is a good reminder for me more than anyone else, because I think, especially with the people we work with and the systems that we're in and the things that we're trying to change, sometimes, and I'm not a coach, but I can imagine it maybe resonates, where sometimes, you know, you might think people we work with are like on the right path. They're like, yes, they're doing all the right things, they're showing up, they're really intelligent, it's all good, and then something will happen and there'll be like a wobble, and then you won't hear from them, and then you think, oh my goodness, everything's over, what are we doing wrong, it's a disaster. And actually they'll wobble and then they'll come back, and then maybe it won't be exactly that right time, or maybe they'll have changed or changed their mind. But I think playing that long game, so trying not to focus too much on like, this is the program, it finishes, this is what people are doing, because it's not, especially for people that we work with, it's not always that linear. And I think, especially me, just as a person, I sometimes kind of lean towards that. So playing the long game is about making the right decisions now for what we want to see in the future. And at Breakthrough, you know, we have our program and we do what we do, but we're also trying to change how the criminal justice system works. So we advocate to employers, we try and change hiring policies so that it's not just Breakthrough graduates, but anyone who's got a conviction is kind of able to access different employment opportunities, and also how the prison service work. You know, what do they prioritize? How do they work with smaller organizations, for example, like Breakthrough, or kind of more innovative things that are happening? So we're kind of trying to change the systems, and also working with people who might, as I said, not have such a linear path. And that's why I think it's just really important to change, to play the long game, and to focus on the kind of end goal. I don't know, Sarah, if there's one that you want.
Yeah, before I come to Sarah, actually, I just want to sort of reply to that whole long game thing. When you really think about it, from what you were saying, it's so important to have that as one of your sort of, your driving values, because it's the ripple effect, isn't it? You know, you might not ever potentially see the long term outcome or positive results, but it's that small impact that you made, sort of in the maybe early or sort of foundational stage of that particular associate's interactions with you. So and I guess it's a bit of a lesson to all of us, really, and potentially all of us as coaches. It is the long game, and depending on sort of our preferences as a coach, we might need to be aware of the fact that it might be that it's our value that we think, I want to see the results for my client. But actually, if we have that play the long game as something in our heads, I think that's quite a key takeaway for me today, actually, Dee. Thank you. So, Sarah, did you want to add anything where that was concerned, but sort of values generally, and potentially maybe how they show up in everything that you do there at Breakthrough?
Yeah, and what you just said really resonates with me, Sharon, because sometimes working in prisons and the community with the demographic of people we work with is sometimes really hard. And actually you can have a session and have a framework, have a way you want to follow, and then you have to kind of chuck it out the window sometimes and just work with what you've got in front of you and meet people where they are, whether that's in that session, and it might be the coaching session is not right for that day, or the framework's not right. But that's been really interesting, the time I've spent with Breakthrough so far. I think just more broadly around ambition and excellence, again, I'm not sure of the experience with startups generally or newer companies in this Zoom room, but there's often a tendency that we'll just get something done. But I think at Breakthrough, our values really are, we want to get something done, but we also want to do it really well. Like, we deserve that as a team, and we deserve it for the people we work with and for society. So always pushing to do, it might take another 10 minutes or it might take another conversation, but going and doing it. We see it a lot with our recruitment, with our team as well. It takes special people to want to work with the criminal justice system, and we advocate, as Dee said, to employers for our associates, but also for talent and other coaches to come into the space. And I think that's the way we share best practice and build learnings from everyone.
Wow, amazing. And I love that. And I love the fact that, you clearly, all of you at Breakthrough, but you can hear it in both what you were saying, Sarah, and also what Dee was saying, that you absolutely live your values. It's not just about the outward facing values as a company, it's internally as well. And, so important for us to remember that. Tell me a little bit more about the the other companies that you partner with, because I know some of them are are really sort of big names, as well as sort of maybe the lesser known ones as well. So how do you find the companies that you partner with on your apprenticeship and also your soft skills programs, and who are some of them?
Yeah, absolutely. So I suppose we kind of have partners who work in two main areas. One is what we call delivery partners. So where we partner with organizations that have specific expertise that come in and deliver sessions, like the Coaching Academy did, our DIS training, and also technical companies. And then we also have partners who are employers who will hire some of the people we work with. So I can maybe just touch on kind of both of. Maybe I'll do the employer side and then hand over to Sarah, maybe to do the delivery partner side. So from an employer perspective, what's quite interesting is we get a lot of incoming requests now. I think there is such a strong A lot of strong like evidence, and a lot of big players now that are saying we're hiring prison leaders. Number one, we think it's the right thing to do, and number two, we're having really good experiences from it, and we as an employer or a company are happy to talk about it. So there might be some kind of the more retail names like Iceland and Timpson's that are really kind of coming out, Greg's, and talking about this. But there's also some other bigger firms that are less well known for doing it, like KPMG, Mott MacDonald, Lloyds Bank. And again, they're doing it for kind of the same reason. So we actually have a lot, as a small team, like we get a lot of people kind of reaching out to us. And I think what's really interesting, a reflection that the partnerships lead here, Liv, had, was we were doing a mock interview day with one of our employer partners, and our contact at the client was saying, okay, all the breakthrough associates are coming in and we need to really impress them because we really want them to work at Mott MacDonald. So it's not just seen as like oh, these people need to come and be really grateful for this job. There's real kind of acknowledgement, I think, of the talent, and our employers want to learn. So for example, Sarah's doing hiring manager training with our employer partners as well. So they're acknowledging that they know that it's not just about recruitment, it's about how do you make an inclusive workspace and what does that really mean tangibly. So we do two things, we help them with the recruitment, but we also, where they want to, support with upskilling and managing their kind of transformation to being a more inclusive employer.
Fantastic.
Thanks, Dee. And on the delivery side, so our pre-apprenticeship program curriculum is 8 weeks to start off with, and then we move into more of an employment transition phase. And within those 8 weeks, we follow a technical kind of curriculum that leads into an apprenticeship. So with each week, we work with employers and individuals who volunteer their time. So we've got a volunteer-based model, which has pros and cons of scaling, but is something that's really worked in our favour at the moment. And as Dee said, there's been quite a strong demand. Sometimes that's for a few different reasons. So individuals might have volunteer days they want to use, and that's something that massively in the UK is underspent. So big advocate, if anyone here has got an extra volunteer day they want to use to spend doing the breakthrough, more than happy to follow up with you afterwards. And also we work with life skills. So as you'll all know, learning technical skills isn't enough to kind of show up well in an employer. So we often work with individuals who haven't had any technical skills before, or haven't ever attended an interview before. So it's really important to us that we provide that wraparound support. And we're always looking for new companies as we scale, just the volume increases. So managing that as a model is challenging but really productive. Yeah, that's all from me, Sharon.
Yeah, that's lovely. We've had a message in the chat box actually, which would be quite interesting to sort of look at. So I know you're based in Finsbury Park in London, and one of the questions in the chat box was, are you just attached to specific or certain prisons at the moment, and is there a particular reason for that, or are you sort of looking to roll out to other prisons? So let's start with that one at the moment. Which prisons, and are you attached to certain prisons?
Yeah, absolutely. So as you say, we're London and South East based. So I would say to differing degrees, we have a closer relationship or a kind of less close relationship with different prisons. So it can be from either delivering in prisons, where we're actually in there 3 days a week delivering our program and kind of doing the follow-on support, or it can be that we work with prisons to do engagement events. So we'll go into a prison and say, hey guys, if you're interested, when you're released, this is our details, this is the program, you can kind of apply for our program when you're in prison, so you can start as soon as you leave, which is really, really exciting. I think, as I kind of alluded to before, this period of time when people are about to leave prison, I like philosophically and evidence suggests is like a really good time to engage. So in prisons that we can't do delivery, still trying to get in there, bringing in people who have been in their shoes, who've done the program, to say, hey, actually you should give this a go, I think is really important. And in terms of how, like, why we kind of are closer with some prisons more than others, it's often to do with the prison itself. So I won't bore you with like all the different things about prisons, but some prisons have a lot of people who are coming up for release because they're kind of what we call settlement prisons. So they have really good classrooms, a very good regime where people are out of their cells and moving around, and there's a real focus on employment mindset, kind of positive, whereas some prisons are more on remand. So you probably have heard that the court backlog is absolutely massive. So there's so many prisons in London that used to be settlement that are now kind of holding places for people whilst they wait for court dates. And I think the philosophy and the focus there is very different. So it's quite difficult as a provider to kind of go in and run training programs, but we still try and get in there and do different events and partner with different organizations and go in and maybe do kind of a session with a partner who's delivering in prison, say, hey, if you are interested in this kind of thing, you know, you've got our names and you can get in contact with us once we're released.
Yeah, fascinating. And I don't know if this would be you, Dee, or maybe Sarah. What sort of work do you do actually specifically in the prison that is different to the community programme?
So we actually fundamentally believe that it should be as similar as possible. And one, that's obviously from a provider point of view, but two, the needs are actually very similar, but with different potential, like I would say, coaching focuses. So just for everyone's benefit, the actual teaching is 3 days a week in both prison and community. And then we do a day of coaching. So we have lived experience coaches that would go in and work one-to-one with our learners or associates. We have a loose coaching structure, so week by week we suggest kind of a topic that might support, but as I said earlier, we meet the associates where they are. So someone might have a very different coaching need. It might be, you know, I'm struggling with confidence or imposter syndrome, or it might be around more, I just don't understand this technical ability, and they're very different coaching topics, right? And that's what I meant earlier by sometimes the needs in the community where they are actually doing live interviews, kind of there's live employment opportunities right there, maybe more coaching requirements around, you know, I got rejected from a job interview, or I'm not sure I can commit to this anymore. Like, they're just examples. So the coaching needs might be quite different, but the actual curriculums we really believe should be very similar, so they cover the same technical and same life skills opportunities.
Yeah, fantastic. And another sort of question in the chat box, which is a really interesting one, actually, Martin. Thank you for that one. And it's sort of all around the sort of the measurement of success. So, what's your sort of measurement for success on your programs? And do you do any formal evaluation, or is it sort of looser than that?
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Can you still hear me? Yeah.
Yes, yeah, you froze for a moment.
Apologies. Yeah, so we are a subcontractor with the Department of Education, so we are kind of assessed based off of similar criteria that, you know, you might get Ofsted inspected in a school, and we have people that come in and observe our sessions and make sure we're meeting set criteria around kind of quality of facilitation, attendance, and things like that. And we are focused on supporting associates through learning, through to interviews, through to employment. So in terms of our internal and external quality checks, they have to match those, we call them milestones. And then outside of that, obviously, it's important to us as leading on kind of learning curriculum that we match like delivery metrics. So is the content meeting the apprenticeship needs? Is the our individual learning needs being met around core sessions? So each associate will have a kind of a learning plan, and every week we call it grading based off of where they're at with their learning objectives. What I will say is that space is massively evolving, and we've still got, as a smaller company, a lot we can do in that space as we grow, and especially as we scale, it becomes a lot harder, but our foundations are there. Dee, I don't know if you wanted to share anything more about impact more generally.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, as I was saying before, kind of playing the long game is harder sometimes when you're looking at metrics, or you have to remind yourself. So in terms of key things you measure, also getting people into jobs ultimately is really key for us. And I think there's some softer metrics that are really important, but that you'd never put on an impact report, which is, I suppose, how many people when they leave prison get in contact. And that sounds like a really obvious one, but anyone who works the prison system will tell you those rates are often less than 10%. So you might run a program in prison, training people on how to paint, and then the next goal is get in contact with us when you leave and we'll get your painting job. And very, very few people even get in touch to say hello. And we have, it might not be that everyone comes and gets a job with us, but current rates are nearly 100% for people, at least like messaging us and being like, yeah, I'm fine, you know, but this isn't right for me as a kind of minimum, which is actually really good. And things like coming to socials, I mean, I think that's also just because I like socials, but I think it's really important to build a community of a network of people who've got a similar past and who have desires for a similar future. And that is so powerful and something that I think is really needed. So actually seeing people turn up and seeing people who've left the program and now in work like over a year ago who are still like engaging and coming to socials and chatting to their like, you know, the people who are like a year behind them, I think is really powerful. It's something that I'm always really focused on that metric as well.
Yeah, I must say, and maybe you can share a little bit more about how we work with you, and then we can talk more coaching specific in a moment. Chat box is coming alive, which is fantastic. You know, that sort of buzz of excitement when you see that. I mean, you know, I worked with within your program. I think I've delivered 3 sessions now with you guys. 2 last year and then 1 the year before. And when you see the associates really connecting in with the material, you know, and I was doing the DISC personality profiling side of things, you know, it does, you know, it's just really fantastic to be able to share our knowledge and our skills with, you know, right across the board, which is fantastic. Just a couple of things in the chat box. Jolene says, this is a fantastic way to raise awareness in the coaching world. Great topic. My career to date, 20 plus years, has been in the voluntary sector, working with the criminal justice system involved with men and women. Criminal justice system is often impossible for people to navigate their way out of it, and therefore they end up in a trap of revolving doors. The voluntary sector is crucial in changing this. So I'm sure you'd advocate and 100% agree with that comment there. And Jenny says, really aware that coaching is often a privileged option. And I agree with that, yeah. So I am so heartened to hear of such a great concept, that making it available to a group of people who may not otherwise have access. Sarah, tell us a little bit more. Coaching is really powerful. Tell us a little bit more about you know, the sort of the coaching and the soft skills sort of element. I mean, we partner with you on the coaching program. Tell me a little bit more about that, because I think the community program, or particularly the part that we partner with you on, it is predominantly sort of soft skills. So how does that sort of how does that work? And then perhaps we can move on a little bit more about you know, sort of the sort of potential support that you know, you look for in volunteer coaches.
Yeah, absolutely. And the community program is the same as the prison program. So every week, the associates will meet one-to-one with a coach, and that coach has lived experience. So as I was alluding to earlier, like can interact coaching with mentoring when required, or, you know, come out of that pure coaching space when the individual needs it. We actually, we follow quite a traditional method here in terms of using T-Grow. It's kind of foundational coaching with that respect, but with the added focus on there's a higher expectation of coming back to a coaching session with evidence that you've done something in between, and that's more to support the associates through those weekly curriculums and make sure everyone's on track and progress, because as you'll appreciate, it's not a long time, so we really want to make sure they're maximizing their time with us as well. I think the lived experience part is really important, and that's maybe something I didn't put enough emphasis on before coming into this sector, because actually building up that relationship with an individual, with a coach, is important in any setting, but particularly when you've got kind of a shorter time period with someone. But that also means that the depth and quality and richness of that relationship is really special. So we do weekly coaching. We also do group coaching and peer coaching sessions when appropriate. So if there's a common theme comes up, sometimes with each program that might differ, but you do see similar themes coming up. And that might be, as I said, around confidence, imposter syndrome, dealing with rejection, managing masculinity, like lots of different things coming through. And then Sharon, to your point around soft skills, so each week we'll do at least half a day of soft skills. They will focus on things around, you know, interviewing, around building your confidence, building your mindset. So similar things you might get access to if you're starting an entry level or apprenticeship role. We want to make sure that all of our associates have those foundations, so it's not the first time they're hearing anything when they go into spaces which partner with the coaching academy, but also with HR departments and other practitioners who may be freelance. This might be something that fits into their wider portfolio, so they allow themselves on a voluntary basis to do this and kind of pay it off with more corporate time. I hope that addresses it, but if there's anything else specific from questions from the group, I'm happy to dig into anything in a bit more detail.
Brilliant, thanks, Sarah. And it is, so powerful that we're able to ensure that coaching is available to everyone and anyone. I know what a powerful advocate all of you are at Breakthrough where that's concerned, and those additional opportunities really that you offer your clients. Now, you mentioned before about employability sort of coaching. What does that actually involve, and how potentially might our coaches and coaches in training potentially support you in that area if they were interested?
Dee, should I take this one? Yep. So after our first 8 weeks, our associates move into a phase we call transition. And at this point, each associate will have quite individual needs, but we allow them a structure where they have access to volunteers, again, on a one-to-one or a group basis. And employability coaches, I would say that's more moving towards kind of more mentoring or, a quasi approach to it. So they might need some help with a CV, or they might need help with a particular job application, or potentially there's a particular barrier or goal that is stopping the associate moving forward. So we work on a one-to-one basis. Anyone can sign up, and we do some stuff in real life, face-to-face, and some stuff virtual nowadays. There's definitely a preference for it to be face-to-face, as we do traditionally see the associates respond well when someone is physically sitting side by side. But we're also getting our associates ready for that now ever more virtual world. And part of our transition phase is also, do you feel comfortable speaking on Zoom and accessing Hangouts and having an appropriate email address and the things like that, which you may forget. But if you take you back to whenever you first applied for your first role, you really do take for granted like how much privilege or access to networks and opportunities some of us may have had, which our associates just don't have. So we really go back to the basics of employability. What do you need to do? How do you need to show up? And how can we support you in that?
And that's so powerful, Sarah. I know myself, I worked for a really long time as in a group coaching role for my local authority with hard to reach parents, and also sort of within child safeguarding, running parent groups and family lifestyle coaching groups, and things that we take for granted that is just sort of there, isn't necessarily taken as given with the clients that you're working with. So when you said about appropriate email addresses, that's sort of something that we would just sort of take as something that's sort of given, really. But it's those little things that can be the difference that makes the difference to, I guess, some of the clients that your associates that you're interacting with. It certainly was for the parents that I was working with and were referred to me. So so important. I guess you'd agree. So you do some face-to-face, you do some in-person stuff. Certainly the T-Grow, that's that's sort of our standard coaching model here that we support our coaches to use. So if somebody was interested in getting involved, what would be the next steps?
So I think generally, so I've put my email in the chat there so people can approach me directly, but I don't know if we're sending out something to all the attendees. We can definitely send out our wider volunteer sign up form, because there might be some of you who know people that might be interested in delivering technical skills, or you might have a specific skill that you want to kind of discuss further, and that's the forum we use it to. We have our next round of programs starting in first week of June, so the need is imminent, so if anyone wants to get involved. And what I would say though is that we're ever evolving and we're always open to a conversation. So the best things that have come out of just chats and thinking, oh, this could actually work and we can support you. We're very keen on complementary and have you I say that word. So we want to make sure we're supporting the wider ecosystem as well. So if any of you are involved with criminal justice sector, or you see some other collaboration, we're keen to have that conversation. Yes, Vicky, I've just seen your email address. Yeah, so the way it might be interesting to people, we work mainly on a referral model. So for our community programs, so we partner with lots of organizations like the Job Centre, but also other partners that are doing amazing work to recommend associates that are would do well with our program. And in prisons we actually physically go in and recruit for our program, so lots of time spent there as well.
And just one thing probably we haven't sort of covered, and again, you know, sort of take it for granted, and I know it was it was mentioned, and you know, I know that this is sort of the area that you're working, but predominantly the prisons that you work in and the associates that you work with are male prisons, men. Is that correct? Or you are thinking of working in women's prisons as well? What's the thought process on that?
Yeah, this is a question we get asked a lot, and something that we think about a lot. So in the UK, 87% of the prison population are men. So there is a bit of a numbers game of, actually, if we work with prisons, the majority of them are going to be male prisons. I also think the women's estate have better provision as generally. There's like more kind of charities, more organizations that work in the women's estate than there is in the men's estate. So if you kind of can't really compare need, but in terms of like access to space and kind of moving in to do work in prison, it's sometimes easier to move into the men's estate because there's less people who operate there. For the community program, we do not discriminate because we don't have to, right? We just say anyone is welcome to be referred. And again, because of the numbers, I think we've had 2 women in total on our program in the past 3 years, because again, it's just not, there's not as many people who have left prison who are female. So we don't generally work with that many women. However, it's not something that we wouldn't do. I think it's just a kind of prioritization at the moment.
Yeah, interesting. Wonderful. I've really enjoyed today's conversation, and we're sort of coming up to the last sort of 10 minutes or so. I don't know if there is any other questions that are coming in the chat box. Just want to read out a little comment from Jenny that says, from a fellow founder, social entrepreneur, bravo Dee. I know what a huge thing you've done and how much work it is. Fab. So credit where credit's due. I mean, it was, we were looking at social enterprise partnership for a while here at the Coaching Academy, and it really was so inspiring to see the work that you do, Dee, and that was why it was so important for us here to partner with you to support that. So we get lots of requests, as you can imagine, but it was the inspiration of what you do that really sort of pricked our interest and said, yeah, this is the one we want to partner with.
Great, thank you, and thank you, Jenny. And I would say, actually, when I was coming into this call today, I was kind of reflecting on coaching, and I've had 2 conversations since Thursday last week. One this morning with the reducing reoffending governor of Highdown, and I kind of introducing, we're talking, I'm working with her on a kind of broader basis, and I said to her, like, what is your main challenge? Like, what do you think is the thing that in the next year you want to work on? And she said it was all about mindset, and talked about coaching and how we maybe, she doesn't really know, but kind of looking at that. And again, the New Futures Network, which is part of the MOJ that's focused on getting people into work, the CEO then was reflecting that actually he thought it was all about getting employers and job opportunities and things like that, and now he's realized that that's not enough, and actually that's not maybe the biggest challenge people have. So he spoke to one of our coaches to try and understand, like, how does it work? Like, what do you do? How could we do more of it? What do we need? What do people need? So I think it's really powerful what this group of people are doing. So whether it's with Breakthrough or whether it's kind of with other organization, I think, I'm new to this space as well, and I think I'm just seeing amazing results and a real focus on it. So yeah, I think if you're able to kind of get involved with us or other organizations, I think definitely do. And I think people are starting to realize how important it is beyond the kind of things that you obviously think are important.
Yeah, definitely. Now, I see Sarah has posted a link to you guys in the chat box, but I will ask you to share in a moment verbally as well for those that we have lots of people listening on playback as well. So I'd hate them to miss out on that. Before we finish, I think I sort of alluded to this before we got started and went live, Dee, but I usually ask all of my guests to sort of share a key learning takeaway, but it's been a little bit of a different conversation today. So I'm just going to ask you maybe, and then I'll come over to you, Sarah, just sort of ask you maybe to share, I don't know, something that you'd like people to take away, or sort of an inspirational message, or just a key point really from your perspective to all of the coaches that are here listening, either live or to the recording.
Yes, thank you. And when Sharon asked me this, I thought, oh goodness, I have nothing inspirational to say, but I will do my best. I think.
You've been sharing inspirational stuff for the last hour.
I think maybe, and it kind of alludes to, I think, Sharon, what you were saying earlier when kind of Sarah and I were reflecting on our corporate background. You said, oh, bringing that kind of skills and expertise to the prison system. And I would honestly maybe say that I learned so much more from working in prison than I ever learned in my job before. And that is from like knowing people's backgrounds, but also just having to problem solve in a really different way, and dealing with questions and things that you never thought. And I think now as a person, like when I'm out and about and other things, or on holiday or things like that, I just think being in a really different environment has really helped my creativity and my ambition and my kind of curiosity as well. So I think whether that's prison or whether it's something else, maybe it's just, and actually Sarah wrote a session on creativity, which I delivered last week. So probably this is all kind of coming together, but just, trying to put yourself in an environment or read something that is really different to what you would normally read. I think it's really good for energy, and might also help your coaching practice and helping kind of meet your clients in a different way.
Love that, Dee. Thank you. Sarah, what about for you?
No pressure. I should have gone before you, Dee. I think I'll come back to my role as a coach. So I've definitely learned a lot more personal development from a coaching practice point of view, working with the associates. So even if it's not through Breakthrough, please try and find another organization or another demographic of people you might not work with already that could really benefit for coaching, and think outside the box. It might not be an industry that has much coaching, or maybe it's you have an hour of your week or an hour of your month that you could spend with someone else that can benefit from making coaching more accessible. I know my whole coaching practice significantly developed approaching it that way. So I just really hope and invite you all to try and experience that if you're not already doing it.
That's such an important message, yeah. And as I say, it sort of links back to what I was saying right at the beginning about, as coaches, we need to consider the depth as well as the depth as well as the breadth of our knowledge, and who we interact with, and spread out our network. Wonderful. Where can people find out more, a little bit about you and what you do, and maybe follow you on socials and things? How can we find you?
So our website is www.wearebreakthrough.org. And if you search Breakthrough Social Enterprise on LinkedIn as well, you'll find us there. And our emails are D or Sarah at wearebreakthrough.org. So feel free to reach out to us as well.
Wonderful. Fantastic. Anything else to add, Sarah, before we start to wrap up our session today?
Just thank you for inviting us. It's been lovely just to have a group of coaches or aspiring coaches, or just here for personal development. It's been lovely to talk and bring those two worlds together.
I totally concur with that. So if you are interested in finding out a little bit more about how you might want to volunteer to start coaching with alongside Breakthrough in the voluntary sector, then please do reach out to Dee or Sarah and find out a little bit more about how you two can get involved. And I just want to finish off really, I think, on Alison's point, and just saying really interested in worthwhile work. Thank you for sharing, taking away the importance of social responsibility, giving people a chance. It's people like us who can support by volunteering. I will be seeking to do more. I don't think I can add anything better than that to finish on today. Thank you, Sarah, and thank you, Dee, for your time today. I know how important it is, and I've been trying to connect with you just to double check everything was all right before the holidays, because I thought, oh, we come back and then we're straight into it. And you guys are so busy with your work and stuff. So I look forward to connecting with you again. Look forward to the next round of our volunteering. Thank you for coming in, and thank everybody here today that joined us live, and also those of you who joined us on the recording. So do remember to join us next month, 9th of May, and we'll be talking all things PR, where coaching and raising your visibility as a coach is concerned. But from me and from everyone here at the Coaching Academy, and from Dee and Sarah and Saloni, thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day, and see you next month. Take care. Bye for now.